Thank you very much.
Good evening, Dr. Zimmerman.
Good evening.
And Dr. Zimmerman, is it correct that you're a board-certified psychiatrist?
That's correct.
And you've supplied both myself and we provided to the prosecution your curriculum vitae stating your qualifications?
That's correct.
Judge, at this time I'd like to ask the prosecution to stipulate to Mr. Zimmerman's qualifications as an expert witness. You had an opportunity to interview Mr. Travis Bickel, is that correct?
I actually interviewed him twice.
And throughout your interview, you had an opportunity to evaluate and form your own opinion as to his mindset, his mental state, and his competency.
Absolutely.
Is it fair to say that Mr. Bickel's perception of the risk of harm for both himself and Iris was reasonable?
I think given the testimony that we've heard, this was a dangerous situation with dangerous people, and in fact, it well may have had a reasonable basis. But above and beyond that, I think given his mental state, I think it was very clear that he felt he had no choice. There was no time for sober reflection. He did what he told me a man had to do.
I thank you. I have no further questions for this witness, Your Honor. Thank you very much.
Doctor, let's begin with the Dillon obsession that you refer to.
Yes.
That the defendant told you about. I understand that a year ago you were testifying in this very court, I believe, possibly before this very judge, and then broke out into song, in particular a Dillon song. And I've heard
it was Just Like a Woman.
Was it? Indeed. Well, I've heard from various psychiatrists, including I think all the way up to the AMA, that they're kind of worried about your particular obsession with Bob Dylan. Have they talked about that with you?
I've discussed this with a lot of people. I've discussed this with the head of my medical department. I've had it because, as you know, psychiatrists always have to remain in therapy to make sure that there's no transference issues, things of that sort. And I've discussed this, and they've said this is actually a healthy hobby of mine.
A healthy hobby, all right. And transference, such as transference to many of your clients that all of a sudden develop an obsession for Bob Dylan.
No, that's actually never been an issue before. And I should tell you, counsel, now that you've opened the door, I mean, I have testified probably in about 1,000 cases over the last 20 years, half the time on the side of the defendant and half the time on the side of the prosecutor. And this is the first client I have ever worked with who had a Bob Dylan obsession. So 1 out of 1,000 is about, I guess, 0.1%, so I think that's okay.
Defense calls Travis Bickel.
Go get him, Travis. Get him, kill him.
Do you swear or affirm under the penalty of perjury to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Have a seat and state your name for the record.
My name is Travis Bickel.
Mr. Bickel, where are you from?
I grew up in Lincoln, Nebraska.
Did you graduate high school?
Yes, I did.
What did you do after you graduated high school?
I enlisted in the Marine Corps, Special Forces.
And how long were you in the Marine Corps for?
4 years.
And where did you serve?
I served in Vietnam.
Okay, did you see combat in Vietnam?
Yeah, I was in three tours of duty.
What did you do withdrawing? Did there come a time where you left the Marine Corps?
Yes, I was honorably discharged in 1968.
Mr. Bickel, as you stated, you were in the U.S. Marines. You were honorably discharged, weren't you, sir?
That's correct.
Okay, you were trained in the use of all types of firearms?
That's correct.
Trained in hand-to-hand combat?
Correct.
In pretty good shape?
Yes.
Okay. You said you're not afraid on the streets of New York. You'd pick up anybody, drive anybody. You're not a fearful guy?
No.
No concern about the ability to defend yourself?
I know that I can defend myself.
It's my understanding that the hotel manager, an individual by the name of Vito Carbone, who is now deceased, actually ran that establishment. He never showed you a gun.
I'm not sure I remember which man had a gun, but one of the men had a gun inside of his jacket.
Okay. You're saying you, because of your training and et cetera, you knew this guy was packing. Is that what you're saying?
That's correct.
Okay.
I could see the outline of the gun under his jacket.
Okay. So the hotel manager, who basically rented rooms in the joint, didn't he? Because he basically hit you up for money to go see Iris for the 15 minutes.
That's correct.
That's what he did. Okay. So he lets you in to see her. You've got a conversation with her. And you're basically trying to convince her to give up her evil ways, quit being a hooker, and go home to her folks.
I wouldn't call it her evil ways, but yes.
Okay, do you have a problem with prostitution?
Yes.
Okay, so her ways, hanging out with what you call lowlife, you wanted her to go home.
That's correct.
Okay. Now, you had seen no guns on Matthew. You had seen known guns on the hotel manager, and yet you went in armed with 4 weapons, including one strapped to an arm?
I knew from talking to Iris and from dealing with these types of people and knowing the types of people that they had guns, and from seeing a gun on the previous time I went to the establishment.
Okay. Now this man never, just as in your first encounter, never pulled a gun, never had a problem with you, and you simply pulled out a revolver and shot him in the stomach.
That's not true.
All right. There was no evidence of any firing by his weapon on the stoop.
He did not fire.
Okay.
He did not have a chance.
All right. So you are saying he pulled a gun on you there.
He tried to pull his gun.
And what was the reason?
To shoot me,
Why?
I suppose.
He'd never stopped you before. He wanted to take your money to go see Iris.
I don't know why he was going to shoot me. You'd have to ask him.
Okay, so this time all of a sudden, instead of a paying client, he decided to shoot you.
He didn't like the tenor of the conversation, I guess.
Source of income, all right, let's just shoot them. So you leave him on the stoop, and you go into the hallway, and there you encounter Vito Carbone. All right, now this guy, prior to this meeting, had simply asked for money for the hotel room while you visited with Iris. And all of a sudden he raised his hands and you shot his hand off?
Yes, I shot his hand off.
Okay. You said he raised his hands and you shot his hand off. All right, at that point in time, was that when, in fact, Matthew Verducci came back in?
The next thing I know, I was shot in the neck, and I turned around and saw Matthew Verducci there.
Okay. You returned fire and took him down, correct?
That's right.
And after you took him down, you walked right over to him and basically issued a coup de grace and put 2 into him as he lay crumpled on the ground, did you not?
I did, because he had a gun in his hand, and I did not know if he was dead yet and if he would return and shoot me again.
Okay. Then you proceeded up the stairs, and at that point in time, again, you shot Mr. Vito Carbone, still unarmed, with a bleeding hand. You shot Mr. Carbone, correct?
It was after I shot Matthew Sport, I was shot in the shoulder, as I testified earlier. I dropped my gun and turned around and returned fire and killed the man who had shot me in the shoulder.
All right, well, we're missing a bullet here then, because in fact, Mr. Carbone was shot through, lost 4 fingers, which we found there in the hallway. He was shot again in the gut. And there was blood on the steps of the hallway before you proceeded up, where in fact the final victim, Mr. Salvatore, came out.
Judge,
So,
objection. Is there a question somewhere?
yes, you gut shot this man, did you not, as you proceeded up the stairs where his pool of blood indicated you shot him?
No,
You don't recall that?
I did not shoot him then.
Okay. So the medical examiner and the forensics filings are just wrong.
I don't know.
Okay. So then all of a sudden, according to Iris, then Mr. Salvatore, who was in the room with her, stepped out. She heard more gunfire and he fell back into the room. Is that when you shot him?
Yes.
All right. You'd never met this man before.
I had seen him in the hotel on previous occasions.
Okay, well, you'd only been in the hotel on one occasion according to your own testimony.
That's the occasion I'm referring to.
Okay, so it's occasion singular, not plural.
Yes.
All right, so then you enter the hotel room, and Mr. Carbone is still not dead, is he?
No.
You haven't finished him off. How old was this guy?
I don't know.
60s?
I don't know.
Mid-60s?
I don't know.
He was old, wasn't he?
I don't know how old he was.
Judge, objection. Ask an answer 16 times already.
Well, I think it was 3, counsel, but I will move along.
I was
So once you entered the room, then this man literally, physically tried to attack you, did he not?
He
He was
grabbed me by
struggling
my
with you.
jacket and he threw me on the ground.
Uh-huh. Is that when you pulled the knife on him?
Yes, before he could punch me.
Okay, now you're trained in hand-to-hand combat. You shouldn't have had any trouble dispensing with this man.
This is after I'd been shot in the neck and the shoulder, but I still was able to stab him before he could punch me in the face.
Okay,
yes.
you stabbed him in the hand, and at that point in time you retrieved a pistol on the floor and shot him in the head.
Yes.
Why did you do that? That man
So
was
that
no
he-
threat to you at that point in time, was he?
I did not know.
By any stretch of the imagination, he had not yet produced a weapon. You had put 2 bullets into him, and you felt the need to issue a final bullet to the head. Is that correct?
Yes.
Now, Iris was screaming at that point in time, "Do not shoot him."
Yes.
You heard that.
Yes.
You were there to save her. She's asking you not to shoot this man,
Yes.
and you did not respond. Why is that?
I didn't know he could have got up and tried to kill me again.
Okay, well, the man hadn't tried to kill you up to that point, had he?
There were several men there trying to kill me, shooting me, and I didn't know what this man was going to do. There were guns lying on the floor, and that's why I killed him, so that he could not kill me or harm Iris.